All right, in this video, I'm breaking down the 3 most common mistakes that I see new SDRs make on cold calls. And these were all mistakes I made myself when I was a new SDR. And now I've been in enterprise software sales for 5 years. I've made thousands of cold calls. I spent 2 years as an SDR manager coaching reps on these exact areas. And what you'll notice is I'm actually asking you to do less here. I'm actually asking you to eliminate these things, not giving you more to do. And once you eliminate these mistakes, you're gonna feel lighter. It's gonna be easier to pick up the phone and you're gonna be able to move faster. So let's get into it. All right, the first key area that I see reps get wrong is they overcomplicate the opening and they try and do too much. And what it leads to are those defensive tones where the prospect is already pushing you off the phone before you've even gotten a chance to really get into your talk track. So one of the most common examples I see of this is asking for permission at the outset of a cold call. It sounds something like, hey, do you have 30 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling? Or even, hey, did I catch you at a bad time? Or sometimes people try and get fancy and do these pattern interrupts where they say, hey, do you have 27 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling? The reason I don't think this is necessary is because it gives them an out. It makes it really easy for them to say, yeah, you did. I'm going into a meeting. How'd you get my number? Or what's this about? And they already have that defensive tone, and now it's really hard to overcome. My philosophy is if they answered the phone, they have time to talk. I don't know about you, but when I get a phone call, if I'm actually busy, like I'm going into a meeting and I don't have time to talk on the phone, I'm gonna not answer, put the phone on silent. If I answer the phone, I have signaled that I'm ready to talk in some capacity. So that's the expectation that you can have. If they answered the phone, they're ready to talk. So you don't need to ask for permission. It really just gives them an easy out that you don't need to. The next most common opening mistake is gonna be verifying the correct contact or verifying that you're speaking to the correct person. Hi, am I speaking with John Smith? The reason I don't think you need to do this is because it puts them on the defensive because now they know that you're a stranger and that you don't know them. I don't know about you, but picture yourself getting a call and if it starts off with, hi, am I speaking with Connor Murray? My defenses immediately go up because now that's just my default setting. I know this isn't a call I was expecting and now I'm like, who are you? What do you want from me? Why are you calling? So I don't think there's any upside to verifying that you're speaking with the correct person because you're gonna learn that in 10 seconds anyway. If you say, hey John, this is Connor Murray calling from X company, how are you? And the person's like, my name's Tim, who do you think you're calling right now? Like, that's what happens oftentimes and you learn very quickly. So I don't think there's any upside to verifying that they're the correct contact. And I think there's a lot of downside because you're now putting them on the defensive and that's a hard state to overcome. And then the final most common mistake I see on the opening is just trying to engage in small talk or playing any sort of games like, hey, this is a cold call, you want to give me a chance here or anything like that. Run away if you see some sales guru telling you to say something like that. You're way overcomplicating it. Or even trying to make small talk about the weather. A lot of people think people buy from people they like, so I gotta make small talk. When in reality, these people are busy. They have day jobs. You just interrupted their day. They'd rather you get right into it than go back and forth about the weather for 5 minutes. I know you're not trying to be impolite, but that's actually what you're kind of doing. If you were grinding on your own workday, you got a proposal you gotta get out to your boss by noon, and so you have enough time to do anything else and get home on time, you don't wanna spend 5-10 minutes on the phone with someone just chit-chatting, and you shouldn't assume that these people do either. So ultimately what I'm getting at is by overcomplicating the opening with all this stuff, you're opening the door for variance. The call could go a million different directions based on are they busy? Do they have 30 seconds? However the small talk goes or whatever games you try and play in the beginning. Ideally, you keep the opening simple and repeatable so that you don't have to think about it, and you should be signaling that you're not here to waste time. So what I like to do instead is say, how are you? But with a downward inflection that signals I'm not here to waste time and that this is a formality. Hey Jim, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you? Basically, all they can say back to that is, good, how are you? So when I answer the phone or when I call someone, the thought that's going through my head basically is, how do I get this person to say, how are you back to me? How do I get a formality from this person? Because once they say, good, how are you? I say, good, I'm just reaching out because, and then I go right into my talk track. And I avoided all these games. And within 5-10 seconds, I'm already telling them who I am, why I'm calling, and what I want. All right, the next most common mistake is gonna be doing too much discovery on a cold call. And I feel for reps on this one because this is often how they're trained. This is how I was trained. I absolutely did this when I was new. But You shouldn't be asking too many questions on a cold call, sort of alluding back to what I was just referring to a moment ago, because these people, you just interrupted their day out of the blue. They don't have time to sit there and answer 4, 5, 6 questions about what they're currently using and how that's going for them and do they have any initiatives in the future. You don't want to be asking them too many questions, because I'd rather be doing that on a discovery call anyway when we've agreed upon, hey, yeah, I'm free next Wednesday for 30 minutes, and then we can both sit down on agreed upon time and I have a better chance of running a good meeting there than an off-the-cuff cold call. So what I see happen all the time is a call can get off to a great start, but then the more and more questions you ask, the more and more exhausted they get, especially when you haven't made it clear that what you're really looking to do is set aside time at a later date and that your goal isn't to run a discovery call right now. And this doesn't serve you. I want you to keep that in mind. A lot of account executives and directors and VPs train their SDRs to do a lot of discovery on cold calls, but that doesn't serve you. It serves them. The reason they do that is because they only want to take fully qualified meetings, but that's not how you're metriced. You're metriced on how many meetings you set and how much pipeline you get. So that's their job to figure out how, when you set a meeting, to turn it into a fully qualified meeting, even if you haven't spent 10 minutes on the phone with them. Because that's not a reasonable expectation that every time you call a prospect, they have 10, 20 minutes for you to ask a bunch of questions, uncover a bunch of pain points, and have that prepared for your account executive and your team at the discovery call. Sometimes all you're able to do is book that meeting. What you're really there to do is sell time. So what you really need to be doing is putting yourself in the shoes of the prospect and respecting their time. And the way to do this is to make a value statement. I'm not going to go through a full value statement here. I'll link to another video where I do that. But you want to make a statement of value within the first 30 to 60 seconds where you tell them who you are, why you're calling, and what you want, and give off just enough value to where it makes sense for them to say, you know what, yeah, that is worth 30 minutes of my time next week. Yeah, we can go ahead and schedule a meeting. At least be giving them that out. If they engage back with you and they want to start asking you a bunch of questions, sure, go for it. Run the discovery, ask a bunch of questions. If they're signaling with their tone and their time that they're here, they'll answer any questions that you have and they actually have questions for you, go for it. But your default setting should be to assume that you just interrupted someone, they're busy, so we more want to do this at a later date. Are you free next Wednesday or Thursday? All right, last mistake, and this one's a killer, and it always pains me to see reps make this mistake. I totally made this mistake when I was new, and it's not making the ask for time. So a lot of reps make the mistake of thinking they have a call that's going 5, 10, 15 minutes, the prospect's engaging, they seem friendly, and they're going back and forth, and they're like, yes, this is going great. And then all of a sudden, abruptly, the prospect says, you know what, I actually got to run into a meeting. Thanks for the call. If you want to just shoot me an email with this information and I'll get back to you and we can circle back on this in the future. Click, and they hang up. And let me know if you've ever gotten an email back when a prospect has said that. I think I've heard that probably upwards of 1,000 times, and I have never seen the prospect get back on an email. It's a brutal way to end a call. So what I tell reps is if you don't ask for time on their calendar, you have a 0% chance of booking the meeting. But just by merely making the ask, even if it's awful, even if you stumble through your whole cold call script, you're tripping over your words, and you just meekly ask like, hey, are you free next week? You have increased your percent chance of success by an infinite percentage, because you've just gone from not asking and therefore having a 0% chance to, even if you have only given yourself a 0.001% chance, at least now you have a chance. You're on the playing field. So you increase your odds by an infinite percent just by saying, hey, are you free next week? So you never want to leave a call without at least making that ask for time on their calendar. And then what it becomes about is increasing your odds when you make that ask. Now that you're on the playing field, now you want to take it from, okay, when I ask, I have a 1% chance of success, get that to 2 or 3 by making different small tweaks, which we'll cover on this channel, but that's the idea. And then the last point I want to make is there are different ways to ask for time on their calendar. When it comes time to ask, reps will often make passive requests or use passive language. They'll say things like, hey, if you're interested, I'd love to set up some time next week, or are you possibly free next week for a quick 15 to 20 minute meeting to meet with my team? You don't sound very convicted, and now, again, you're giving the prospect an easy out. It makes it easy for them to say, no, actually, you can just shoot me an email. Where if you more use assumptive language like, great, yeah, let's set up some time next week. Are you free on Wednesday or Thursday? Or, great, yeah, I'm looking to just set up some time next week. We can introduce you to the rest of our team and then get aligned for the year going forward. Are you free on Wednesday or Thursday? Small tweaks like that in your language and tonality will make a big difference. So take it one step at a time. Before I start giving reps different lines and techniques to say, which I certainly have, I start by the process of elimination and getting them to stop overcomplicating the opening, stop doing too much discovery on cold calls that's not your objective, and then start making the ask. If you can really just take these one at a time on each individual cold call, just practice, you're gonna see your results massively improve, and it's gonna be a lot easier to pick up the phone going forward. So if you enjoyed, hit the like button. Hope you did, and I'll see you on the next one.